Southside Fringe.
Hello, my name's Angela and I'm hosting the spoken word section of Plugged in and Wired. And we have got Sean Wai Keung performing a poem. Sean is an award-winning writer, performer and spoken word artist. He's performed at Sonic Youth, Anatomy Arts and Indie. He writes a lot about migration, identity and food. His first full-length collection is out in April with Burr Poetry Press. And he's going to be performing The Possession, which is part of Haunted Voices, an anthology of Scottish Gothic storytelling, which is published by Haunt Press. If you want to know more about Sean, you can visit seanwaikeung.card.co.
Hey, this is The Possession from Haunted Voices, an excellent anthology by Haunt Press. 1. Who knew hungry ghosts could exist this far north? I see them sitting high on top of the old walls in Glasgow, eyes wide and pale, mouths gaping toothlessly, gossiping with each other about Love Island, I'm told. Most people claim that they don't exist, or some others go too far the other way. They fall in love with the hungry ghost realm and raving mad they do things like appear on TV for rambling interviews or postgraduate studies. The history of Scotland is a history of slavery, these lunatics say. Now they have returned to avenge themselves. But that's not really why the hungry ghosts are here. I know this because I asked one once in the Merchant City. It confirmed to me that revenge is the last thing on their minds. If we kill you all, you will only become hungry ghosts like us. Then you would haunt us forever. No, better to just let you all get on with yourselves. And so I asked back, well, why are you here then? But the hungry ghost just laughed and turned its head away from me. 2. The hungry ghost that I talk to the most goes by the name Robert Allison. He always sits slightly away from the groups of others and is always up for a chinwag. Robert Allison, I say to him one evening, is it true that hungry ghosts watch and enjoy Love Island? Robert Allison nods affirmatively. Love is what hungry ghosts miss the most about being alive. It's not food? I asked disbelievingly. Robert Allison mumbles something under his ghostly breath. I can't hear it, but I get the impression that he knows something secret he doesn't want to tell me, but he eventually will. 3. During the summer, hungry ghosts become stronger than normal, whereas in the winter they wither somewhat in the cold. During warmer weather they radiate and grow taller. This makes it even more perplexing to me why they would be in Glasgow. Surely they are better suited to far warmer places. I asked Robert Allison this during another evening, where he lounges on a bank by the Clyde. His spectral head lolls around lifelessly as he gives me a puzzled look. They are here, because I am here, he says, in a manner suggesting that I should already know this. 4. The term hungry ghosts comes from a Buddhist concept, which itself is a translation of a Sanskrit concept. Wikipedia defines the term as representing beings who are driven by intense emotional needs in an animalistic way. The term is not to be confused with the generic term ghost, i.e. the spirit of a deceased ancestor. The understanding is that all people become such a regular ghost when they die, and would then slowly weaken and eventually die a second time. Hungry ghosts, by contrast, are a much more exceptional case. It's believed that hungry ghosts can arise from people whose deaths have been violent or unhappy. Hungry ghosts can emerge from neglect or desertion of ancestors. 5. One day, while trying to interview a particularly thick huddle of hungry ghosts, a lunatic approaches us ranting about tobacco plantations. I ask the hungry ghosts if they know who this lunatic is. The hungry ghosts cackle and shake their heads violently from side to side. One by one, they melt into the earth and vanish. Do you mind? I say to the lunatic. I was trying to do an interview. But the lunatic doesn't hear me. The lunatic is in their own world. Some nights I get scared that I will become a lunatic too. It's on those nights that I can't sleep. I've forgotten now how I came to be so close to the hungry ghosts. I only remember arriving here. As soon as I got off that megabus, there they all were. I couldn't help but see them, watch them, talk with them. I asked everyone I met about them, but they all accused me of being crazy. Apart from the lunatics, of course, but all they cared about was the realm that they occupied, the history that they personified, the analysis of their being. They didn't seem to want to get to know them on any kind of individual basis. 6. Towards the end of summer, I begin to realise that Robert Allison may not actually be a hungry ghost, but just a regular ghost. I get the hint one day as I walk down towards one of Robert Allison's regular haunts. As I turn the corner of Hope Street, I see him being held in place on the ground by one hungry ghost, his head forcefully pressed up against a giant pale sword, at the end of which 2 other hungry ghosts stand tall, all 4 of their hands grasping around the hilt. They laugh, but it isn't their normal cackle. This is something more forceful, more genuine. "Robert Allison!" I shout. "What's happening?" And then the sword comes down. And as it pierces Robert Allison's face, the hungry ghosts leap on him, and out of nowhere a light flashes, like a sudden lightning strike, and the hungry ghosts and Robert Allison are gone. 7. According to Wikipedia, Robert Allison was a Glasgow merchant. Allison was a local man who had begun life as a baker, before setting up with his brothers in Port Glasgow as a trader. He made his fortune trading with Britain's American colonies, eventually becoming a landholder in the Caribbean. The profits from trade in both tobacco and slaves allowed him to purchase Flinders Farm, which was land that his family had worked for centuries. 8. I begin to ask hungry ghosts that I meet about Robert Allison. Most of them try to avoid the question, attempting instead to turn the conversation towards Love Island. Some simply stare at me blankly, a couple grow immediately angry and fade away. In desperation, I attempt dialogues with some of the more approachable lunatics. I share my theory of Robert Allison just being a regular ghost, and they agree with me that this is possible. It's the only thing that makes sense, I say to the lunatics. The hungry ghosts aren't here to haunt us. They are here to haunt him. One of the lunatics tells me that I should go to Greenbank Gardens, since it had been built for the original human form Robert Allison on Flinders Farm back in the 18th century. "Well, come with me then," I say to the lunatics, but the lunatics say that they're all too busy conducting their experiments on ectoplasm. 9. The next day, I wake up. Robert Allison is there, on my ceiling. 10. Before I can say anything, Robert Allison rushes down at me, and for the first time I make physical contact with a ghost. His hands grasp the sides of my head. It feels like icicles pinning me in place, like being stapled to a document that I never knew that I had to sign. He places his face on my face so that our noses touch. His empty eyes fuse into mine. I try to close my eyes, but I can't. I try to shout from my mouth, but I can't. I feel all the moisture in me evaporating. I do not want this. "You," he growls, and his eyes become suns, "belong." My mind begins to blend itself to me. He melts his face even further into mine, and just like that, I become lost. 11. Robert Allison is a liar. Hungry ghosts don't enjoy Love Island because they miss love. They enjoy Love Island because it's a similar realm to their own. During the 8 weeks that Love Island takes place, the overwhelmingly hetero C people who take part spend their time sunbathing and expressing how they feel. They do this in this specific kind of way that no living person could naturally achieve. Occasionally, they have to take part in tasks or dates. Sometimes they must speak directly into a camera to some unseen audience beyond their immediate presence. This is what makes Love Island masterful in its depiction of personalities distilled into buzzwords. For instance, this one is the funny one, this one is the angry one, this one is the Scottish one. And as time goes on, these personalities slowly break down. The competitors become simulacra of their original depictions of themselves, and the viewer realises that in this world, these characters own nothing, they can do nothing, they no longer belong to themselves, they belong only to a production team, and this production team directs them in feeling all the things that they have to feel. I discussed this with the others while sitting on top of the high walls. I find myself getting progressively more excited along with them for the next episode. How will the funny one goof up tonight? What drama will the angry one start? Who will the Scottish one pick to couple up with? Occasionally I see Robert Allison, but I've been warned to stay away from him now. The others sometimes whisper things to me about the three that I saw before who attempted to kill him. They say that nobody has seen him since. They say that Robert Allison fought them all back, then chained them up somewhere far away. "'Twas foolishness," one says to me. "All we can do is wait for him to die a natural death. All we can do is watch him, follow him." So what do we do then? I ask. "Best just get on with ourselves," they say. And so we do.